All right. You know what that's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. Let's get right to it. Busy stuff, busy night. Got college football week 9. Yeah. Week 9 is here. Kevin still on his heater,
Heater.
kicking ass and taking names. 33-20 plus 18.5 units. 5-1 last week. Your locks are 7-2, correct?
Yeah.
And then Matt McCumber, 23-30.
Absolute opposite on the locks.
11.5
I'm 2-7 on my locks. That's the problem.
And we still got plenty of weeks left to go. So let's jump right into it, you guys. Let's start with Notre Dame and Navy in Philadelphia. This is an interesting one. It's 13.5 point spread for Notre Dame. You know, Navy's been an impressive team. As we've mentioned before, they've been like a lock that we've been using, and it's been working the last few weeks. Matt, we'll start with you on this one. As we've seen, Notre Dame can have a stinker, but Navy, I think, is going to present them a big challenge. 2 touchdowns is a lot, especially with a high-scoring, high-powered Navy offense this year. What is your take on this? And do you have Navy covering in Philadelphia?
I do. I'm going to take the midshipmen here. First of all, I'm a Philly Eagles fan, so I mean, at the link against Notre Dame, they're going to be pumped to play. These are 2 good defensives here, and on the flip side, Navy, I mean, they're averaging 45 a game. I mean, they're getting it done. Their defense is top 5 in the nation in takeaways. They're +2 per game. If a team turns it over 3 times, they're getting 3 and they're giving it away once. So, I mean, they're +2 per game. That's highly impressive. They really feed off their defense. A lot of tackles for loss and sacks on that front line. But to the flip side, Notre Dame's defense is no slouch either. They're very good. They're giving up about 12 points a game all season. This is going to be a test for Notre Dame for the fact that, you got to prepare for Navy. It's just a different the military schools is just a different look than you're used to week in and week out. I think this is a lot of run. I think the clock will be moving here a lot. I think this is going to be a little bit of a, field position game at times. I think we'll see points, but I think both teams will kind of feed off each other. And I think the midshipmen can keep it close here. I think their defense just has enough. And I think they get it done in Philly as almost 2 touchdown underdogs. So give me the midshipmen plus 13.5.
And real quick, Kev, we got a couple people, Jay Bagan, saying this is your week, Matt. You're due.
Jay, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thanks for hanging in there.
Kev, do you see Navy, covering this line?
Gut reaction on this one, and that's, really what it's hard to say that's a lot of what I've been using this year is just looking at lines and just like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but just doing some research on this one is that Navy struggles to stop the run, and Notre Dame's one of the better run stopping defenses in the country. The other aspect about this is there's got to be people on that Notre Dame staff. Is this Marcus Freeman's 2nd or 3rd year, Matt? You remember?
Ooh, I want to say 3rd, but
it is his 3rd year.
Yeah.
So the one aspect about, when Army and Navy play teams that are not prepared for what they're going to do, teams can really struggle, like Notre Dame did against them back 2 years ago. Last year, however, they had them to open the season, so you've got all the preparation going into it. Teams that have bye weeks before Army and Navy seem to perform really well, especially like when you start playing the Power Fours teams. But I think that Notre Dame has the ability to kind of slow them down enough. Here's the thing. Notre Dame does want to run the ball. They run the ball pretty effectively, about 200 yards a game, and Navy's struggling to stop the run. Navy's giving up about 175 yards per game. And both these teams play at a snail's pace. Now, granted, a lot of Navy's scoring has been the ability to break long plays. Their quarterback is really impressive. His name's eluding me at the moment. Guys, better passer than Daly for Army. Not quite the rusher, but he's accounted for 20 touchdowns this year. Really is one of the guys who's probably on the outskirts of looking at the Heisman. All that to be said, I think this game plays at a snail's pace, and I like under 52.5 points for a half a unit here, as I think these teams want to grind it out.
Blake Horvath.
Blake Horvath, yeah, really good player. Like I said, he's accounted for a boatload of yards here. But I got over under 52. I'm going to take the under 52. I think this game ends up being something like 30-17, and with that 13.5, that's just a weird number, but I think it stays comfortably under the 50 to 52. So give me the under for a half unit. Matt, what are you on for Navy for units there?
I'm going to do a half as well.
All right.
Let's move on to the next one. A little bit different type of matchup here. Probably going to be a lot of passing, but from Missouri, heading to Bama, 13.5 as well for Alabama. Is Brady Cook going to be available for Missouri? He basically pulled what's the best way to say it?
Willis Reed, maybe?
Yeah,
Walt Frazier or Wes Unseld, which one that came back from the locker room?
Yeah.
Walt Frazier one.
But this guy
Willis Reed.
Willis Reed, that's it. I know it's one of those guys that started with a W, played for the Knicks.
This guy left the hospital room. He just got checked in. They were ready to get the IV in him, and he just pulled it out of his leg and just came back and helped Missouri escape Auburn last week.
He Bobby Boucher'd him.
Yeah. And it sounds like if you're getting MRIs on your ankle, that could be kind of they're kind of worried about you. I know we talked a little bit before we went on live that that's something you probably don't recover from, and that's something that you probably don't recover from in 6 or 7 days. So that's it. Kev, we're going to start with you here. Is Missouri even have a chance to cover this if Cook doesn't play?
I don't think so, and I wouldn't like them to cover otherwise. They struggled at the line of scrimmage against Auburn, especially on offense. They really struggled at the line of scrimmage against Texas A&M. And while Texas A&M is probably a better team than we thought, maybe after the way they started the season with the loss to Notre Dame, I just still don't – and I know Alabama's defense is a little bit off right now, and Alabama's not playing the best football. They do get them at home in Tuscaloosa. I think this is a little bit get-right game for Kalen DeBoer and the Roll Tide. So give me Bama minus the 13.5 for a half unit.
Matt?
Yeah, and we talked about it last week. I don't know who this Auburn or this Alabama team is. I mean, they have no identity right now. They've lost 2 out of the last 3. One is against Vandy on the road and barely beat South Carolina at home, and then go and lose last week.
Lead,
yeah, blow a lead. They had turnovers in the red zone. Both them and Tennessee did, but tough game at Tennessee. But at the same time, they really did it to themselves. They're playing undisciplined football, something we're not used to from the Nick Saban days. But I'm going to agree with Kev here, and I think it is a get-right game, and I based my prediction on Brady Cook being limited if he plays at all. Word out of Columbia today, he probably didn't practice. Now, that's not confirmed, but at the same time, there's a couple more days left that he could get in there. But I just, I think Mizzou is going to be behind the 8 ball here. They struggled with an Auburn team at home last week, and yes, that had to deal with him being out of the lineup. So that's what I'm going in this game thinking.
That's bold, Sean. Very bold.
They're going to have a backup in, and I'm still waiting for the Bama team of old to show up and just put the gas pedal down. Maybe it's this week. I hope it's this week, but I'm taking Bama at home. 13.5 for a half unit.
Hey, Sean, if you feel that way, I assume you live in Illinois. You got plus 380 on it. Go blade $10 down and
nice little hit.
Yeah, win $40. There you go.
Exactly.
Now, what'd you say you were on that for unit wise?
Half.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right. The next one is one I think we all here have some very intrigue in. We're going to Eugene. We're going to make our way up to Oregon with Illinois traveling to Eugene. Number 20, Illinois. The newly minted number 1 Oregon Ducks. Illinois 6-1 coming off a glorious Saturday, beating Michigan. And the CBS crew is returning to Oregon and Illinois back to back. I'm actually going to get to enjoy that finally. So 21.5 is a lot of points. I've been looking at some different numbers this year. They're really not that good against the spread this year, Oregon, from what I've been looking at. They covered last week to 29.5 against Purdue.
They covered against Oregon State. I know that.
Yeah, I think they're 3 and
didn't cover against Boise.
Didn't cover against Idaho.
Didn't cover against Idaho. Covered against Ohio State.
Yeah, so I think they're 3 and 4 against the spread, or maybe 4 and 3. It's one of those. But so it's going to be 64 degrees, overcast. Looks like 86% chance of rain at the moment. So 86% chance of rain at the moment, and Illinois with a chip on their shoulder, in my opinion, to come in there and show people that, just like they did against Penn State. So we'll start with you, Matt. Your thoughts on Illinois and Oregon, 21.5 Oregon.
Yeah, and to Jason's point, Jason says Matt proves you can dive deep into these matchups, and a coin flip is just as accurate. And ain't that the truth? This week I took a little different approach, and I didn't do much research. So I'm going off the cuff here, more gut reaction. But where's the respect for the Illini here? 6-1, playing really well. Defense really showed out last week. Total night and day from a week before against Purdue. I thought Aaron Henry had a great game plan. Really kept it simple from what I could read and follow. And, I think you see a lot of that this week. Now they're going to be tested a lot more. Dylan Gabriel, no slouch, who, probably top 3-4 Heisman candidates in the country, can really sling it. They got wide receivers at skill positions that can run, all over the Illini secondary if we allow them. But I just, to your point, Ryan, I think Illinois has just got a chip on their shoulder. They're feeling good. They're not scared of going to Oregon, especially at 2:30.
Matt? What do they got to lose, Matt?
They have nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. If they lose, okay, you've lost to the number 1 team in the country at home, at their place, and the number 4 team in the country at their place. All their goals are still ahead of them. I think you just see an Illini team that lets it loose this week. 21.5, way too many in my opinion. So I'm taking the home team, as in our home team, the Fighting Illini, plus 21.5.
And as Kev's preparing for this, if it does boil down, Matt and Kev, to Illinois, and let's say Illinois end up 10-2, and your only 2 losses of the year are to at Penn State and at Oregon, and that's the reason you don't get into the college football playoff. Like, to me, it's like that's a team right there. It's like if a one team got left off, it's like, oh, because they lost twice at Oregon and at Penn State. Like, wow, a lot of teams would do that as well, by the way.
Yeah, and both. I mean, in Oregon, Penn State is at night. That's a big difference there. Obviously, this game isn't. This game's a 12:30 local time kick.
Yeah.
The questions I have in this one that have me a little worried is Illinois feeling themselves after the win against Michigan? I don't think so. I think it was a game because the way that the game was handled, like they knew that they were winning that game for a full quarter, right? Yeah. And I had a chance to talk to Tyler Strain after the game. And, it's house money. It really is a house money, and Illinois can let their hair down and go loose. The reason why this number is the way that it is before Illinois fans get upset is that Illinois is 12th in the Big Ten in total offense and 12th in the Big Ten in total defense. The metrics don't like Illinois. We were badly outgained in the Penn State game, but only lost by 2 touchdowns. I think we were outgained in the Michigan game, but we all know a lot of that came in the fourth quarter after the game was intact. We gave up 500 yards to Purdue. There's a lot of things that sit out there and people go, well, what's this all about? But I'll tell you this. The one thing that this Illinois football team is doing is making me think a little bit about March Madness. And I think that Illinois is having a way of changing the way that teams want to play, right? Penn State was number one in the nation in big play offense, right? Coming into the game. They had 30% of their plays went for 20 yards or more coming into that. They had one play all game. It was the first passing play of the game that went for 20 yards. Illinois has a way of making teams conform to their style. I think Illinois will try to do the same with Oregon. I think Oregon's defense is very good. However, they can be susceptible to the run. And one of their star defensive ends, Jordan Birch, probably is not going to play. This guy's a projected second-round draft pick, 6'6", 300-pound defensive lineman. Guy's a beast. I don't think he's going to play. Number one, if he does, keep an eye on that. I think Illinois keeps us within the number. I think it's like 38-21. I do think Illinois. I think maybe the spread folks are discounting the fact that Illinois has already gone on the road and played in two extremely hostile environments and came away with a win. But I think Illinois has enough moxie in them to keep this within the number. Oregon was my preseason pick to win the national championships. So I think this team is very good. I think Illinois shows they can compete and stay within the number, like I said, 38-21. I'm going that for a half unit.
I did mine for one.
All right.
Okay. So both fellas think Illinois covers. I think most Illini fans would be happy to hear that. Now let's move
I'm just happy I said it. I don't know if they're happy Matt said it.
Yeah.
Hey, I had them last week.
You did. You did, my friend. Yes, you did.
Okay, so let's say this week Kev's 5-1 and you're 2-4 or 3-3, whatever. Next week we'll just let Kev go first.
Yeah,
And then you can follow him. You see?
Okay.
There we go. All right. So
that's funny. It's just funny, Jason. I listened to a gambling podcast this morning that said that they liked Oregon first half minus 13.5 because they think they get out on Illinois, and Illinois then keeps it within the total number. I kind of like your point there. That's a very early game for them.
Very.
It's traveled across the country too. I think they're putting a little bit of stock in that, but we've seen it recently. Like, UCLA went on the road to Rutgers and beat them. I forget there was another one that happened the previous week that surprised me, and we'll see. So.
Yeah, Dan Lanning does seem like a pothead. That's for damn sure.
I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's a great coach though, but you just get that vibe. He's like a stoner, so he just gives it off, man. So Texas, Vandy, 18.5 points, and Nashville. Vandy has been definitely a surprise this year. They've went on the road and beat some teams when, people were like, hey, beware of these guys. They just beat Bama. And then Vandy goes on the road and beats Kentucky, and when Kentucky had they should have every reason to get up for that game. So we'll go 18.5 here. Texas, Kev, we're going to start with you on this one.
It's not a primetime game. Game's kicking at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 our local time.
It'll end in prime time.
Right, but this will be a little bit different than the Alabama game. The Alabama game had a ton of Bama fans in attendance, right?
Yeah.
But Vandy's got some excitement around it, right? They got some newness to themselves. They've got a ton of momentum and a ton of hype. Now, that being said, you guys know I love the bounce back games from teams. Texas just lost a tough one at home, but I think there's some problems with Texas right now that aren't going to be able to just be fixed, right? I don't think Quinn Ewers is right. Quinn Ewers I don't think that Oblique is right. Archie Manning is. I mean, you want to throw a freshman on the road and what I think will be a hostile environment, especially for Vandy that has not proved to be a hostile environment in the past. This line opened at 21.5. Tells me the Sharps jumped on Vandy early and moved the line down 3 points. I don't think 18.5 is a move down enough for me to go with the Longhorns. Give me the Commodores plus 18.5 at home for a full unit. I think they might even put a little bit of a scare into Texas in this one. Their quarterback, Paiva, is just got
Diego Pavia.
Pavia. He has a ton of moxie. And I think those guys rally around him and believe in him. And I think they keep this one close and stay within the number and maybe pull a little bit of a scare into Texas. So give me Vandy plus the points for a unit.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I was going to say 2 words, Diego Pavia, because this dude is gritty, gutty, transfer from New Mexico State, was just in Las Cruces, nobody knew about him, but played good football just with a bad team, and comes to the SEC, and he's lit a fire under that whole program. And they feel like they've got a chance. Vandy is undefeated against the spread this year. Okay. And I don't think that's going to change. I'm taking the Commodores at home plus 18.5. They are top 10 in the country in third down conversion rate. They are very good in short yardage possessions where they're able to move the chains, keep that clock rolling, and keep the ball away from the other team. And to Kev's point, I think Quinn Ewers is, I don't know, he's the more talented quarterback just from an aesthetics point and his arm and his legs and what he can do. But I don't see too much difference between him and Pavia, if I'm being quite honest. I just like Pavia's moxie, and he's a winner. And so I think Texas is reeling a little bit here. Just being in the Big 12 when I was at Kansas State, Texas had 1 to 2 games every year that they would go someplace and just didn't perform well. Everybody
Kansas State.
Yeah, Kansas State beat them hand over fist year after year. It always happened. And this is a new look SEC for them, so they're still trying to figure it out. But I just think 18.5 is way too much from a Vandy team that's really shown a lot of progress. So I'm taking a full unit on this as well. Give me the Commodores at home, 18.5.
All right. I'm in agreement with that. I think Vandy's shown a lot, and I think that's just disrespectful. I think the 21.5 with Oregon is too, but we'll go to the last game of the day here before we get to the locks. LSU heads to College Station to take on Texas A&M.
By the way, game day should have went to Nashville.
Yeah.
The whole game day, they're not doing Big Ten things, but they're going to 4-3 Washington.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Indiana, who's not going to have Rourke playing.
Yeah.
It's just
the first ever Big Ten Network game that game day's been a part of.
Yeah, it's just a snooze. It's a snoozer to me.
Well, now we mark them off the list. Now it's like Stanford and 2 other teams. So,
and there's one other team
in Maryland, I think.
Yeah, there's one other team. I think I'm trying to remember who it is. They wear orange, I think. Which will happen next year. I'm calling it, Kev. We've talked about it. LSU A&M 2.5 point favorite. Texas A&M over LSU. A&M, to me, wasn't a team that really has impressed me much over the year, but they just seem that I saw the game against Arkansas in, Jerry World, and it was just ugly, and then all of a sudden now they seem to be hitting a little bit more of a stride, A&M, and LSU got a big win over Ole Miss. So we'll start with you, Matt, here, 2.5. Do you think A&M can hold on here and keep LSU at bay?
Yeah, I'm going against my gut on this one. Here are just a couple stats. LSU is 12-1 against the spread in its last 13 games against A&M. It's neutral, home and away. And A&M is 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 just overall. So not covering. Their A&M's 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 home games against LSU. So trends are not going well for A&M here. But they're coming off a bye week. They've got to rest up. They have the athletes to compete with A&M. The thing I worry about with A&M right now, or with LSU, the thing I worry about with A&M is the quarterback situation. It's gone topsy-turvy, back and forth. There's been an injury, set down, backups come in, has done serviceable, obviously. But you just kind of never know what you're going to get, and that's why you get some of these ugly games, to Ryan's point. Both top 15 teams in the country. I still don't know how LSU lost to USC at the beginning of the year with how USC has performed lately. But I took A&M earlier in the year at home at Kyle Field. It's a huge home field advantage. This is a nice rivalry between the two teams, if you can call that, because LSU has dominated pretty extensively over the last 10 to 15 years. But I'm going to go with A&M against my gut at home, less than a field goal, and I think the home field advantage does it for the Ags. Half unit.
So
Yeah, I'm on this one for a unit, and it's a Kyle Field situation. And Kyle Field situation at night. I
Yep.
think that A&M slept walk through Mississippi State after just thumping Missouri. It was a little bit of a trap game, even coming off a bye week. I mean, you could say a little bit like what Illinois had with Purdue, if you will. It's listen. I lean Brian Kelly's the better coach here. I lean Nussmeier's the better quarterback over Wegman. But my favorite bet in college football, as you guys well know, is home dogs in prime time. Now, they're not a dog, but it's only 2.5. And if it was a little bit more, if it was 3 and a hook, I might go the other way. I think this is a field goal game. I think this ends up being something like 31-28. Give me the Aggies because of Kyle Field. And
Yep.
I think Elko's starting to find some strides with this team. I think he's a really good coach, and I'm on that one for a unit.
All right. Let's see. And now it is everyone's favorite.
Actually, I'm going to move the Bama Missouri game to a unit. I'm going to take this one for a half. Matt, you want to make any adjustments?
I like where I'm at.
All right.
Yeah. One full on Illinois, one full on Vandy.
Gotcha.
All right. So we're gonna start with Kev here. Your lock this week.
All right. So I went against it. I went against it a couple weeks ago, and it bit me in the butt when I took a road dog in prime time in Oregon State at Nevada. So I'm going through and I'm looking at games, and I'm looking at a team that's trending up right now, and they get a home game in prime time, and they're given almost a full touchdown. And I really like Wisconsin plus 6.5 this week against Penn State. Obviously, Penn State's been out to USC and were tested. Probably should have lost that game. Obviously, it's not in Illinois' best benefit for Wisconsin to win this game or Penn State to lose, which way you slice it. We talked about it on the show last night. It's not in our best benefit for the primetime slot or whatever slot we're going to get with Minnesota the following week. But I am going to I think there's a rejuvenated thing happening in Madison. I think jump around is going to be really loud Saturday night. I think it's going to be a tough place to play. It's crazy, but I think Wisconsin lucked out with Van Dyke getting hurt. I think they might have found something in the quarterback here. They certainly found it in running back and Walker. The defense has given up less than 10 points in 3 straight games. Granted, it's a new animal at Penn State, but give me the Badgers plus the 6.5.
Yeah.
So, are you taking them overall? Do you think they beat Penn State?
If I were going to go the window, I might sprinkle a little on the money line.
Okay. All right, Matt.
I'm going to go to Coral Gables, and I'm going to take the Hurricanes minus 21 at home versus the Florida State Seminoles. And Florida State, I just don't think they can score enough in this game. They've exceeded 20 points one time this year, and they scored 21 against Georgia Tech at the first game in the season in week 0. And since then, they've scored 13, 12, 14, 16, 13, and 16. I don't know where the points are going to score. I can see Miami putting up, in-state rival, wanting to make a statement. They're undefeated. And, their college football hopes are, right there where they need to be. I see them just taking the Seminoles to the woodshed here and scoring over 40 points. There's no way. I mean, I don't see Florida State scoring more than 20. So I'm taking the Hurricanes at home minus 21 versus the in-state Seminoles. That's my lock.
Hey, Duke's getting 11.5 on Saturday night, so just a heads up.
I see that. I
like that. You at Duke?
Yeah, I got another ACC game I'm going with for my cash money. I'm 5-3. An injury really hurt me last week. I picked it on Tuesday. We find out that King, their quarterback at Georgia Tech, who's really the heart and soul of that team, didn't play, and it was out. So I didn't realize that 3 days prior. So that got me there. But I'm going to go We're going to stick in the ACC. I'm going to pick Syracuse to cover at Pitt Thursday night. Okay. I believe it's 6.5. Let me see. I was just looking at it here.
Yeah, that's Thursday night.
Yeah, it's 6. And
Yep.
I want everybody to know this. Pittsburgh is set. Yeah, they're undefeated in 6-0, but you go through their schedule, and let's be honest, Cal should have beat them last week.
Yes.
Kent State, the worst team in the country, scored 24 on them.
By a lot worst team in the country.
North Carolina is awful and gave them a game a couple weeks ago. They should have lost to Cincinnati and got lucked into a last second field goal. Syracuse is tough. Kyle McCord is a savvy veteran quarterback. They went on.
I think Kyle McCord leads the nation in passing yards.
Yeah, so
I think that might be right. Yeah,
they went on the road and beat a tough UNLV team in Vegas.
Yep.
I watched that game. They're gritty, and Pitt's got one coming for them. So I think Syracuse wins at Pittsburgh, but I definitely have them covering the 6 on Thursday night, 6 p.m. on ESPN. So I'm going to pick the Orange over Pittsburgh is my cash money pick this week.
I like it. I don't like picking road teams to win, but I certainly don't mind them to cover in this situation. So, passing yards on the season, Cam Ward leads the nation. But I'll see here passing yards per game. McCord is
Jason. You're right. I'm putting the hex on Miami.
Second.
Yeah, McCord. I'm gonna say, and Pitt is prime for that. So they've escaped this year 2 or 3 times the games they should have lost. So I just and admit my pick is just them covering. By the way, I'm just saying I still think that Syracuse is going to win the game, but so covering the 6. So before we get off here, I know it's getting a little bit late. Kev, anything else you'd like to add on here before we take off for the night?
No, brother, I'm good. It's just always fun. Hope we can stay hot, and if we stay hot, it'll help Matt. We're on a lot of the same games this week, so
yeah, we are.
I'm excited or nervous.
You can visit me down here in the gutter. Yeah.
Barry says I just learned that all guys wearing the get up are not at all military ROTC.
Yeah. I mean, I coach there. I mean, the majority of them are, but not all of them are. You have to be in the ROTC to wear the uniform, but there's other ways to get into it without. I don't know. It's a whole deal, but they're called the Corps of Cadets there, and yeah.
I think Chris Kev's planning on staying hot, so we'll see. And Jay began. We do need to get the Fade the Duce Home Dogs and Primetime shirt going.
Yeah, we do.
I'll see if I can work on that. See if I can talk to my guy at Hometown Hype Apparel. I know he doesn't sponsor us anymore, but we might be able to work some magic. So
hey Ryan, here's something to put in your feather here. You got the number 2 passing quarterback in yards per game. Pittsburgh's allowing 104 yards, 104th in the country in yards per game passing allowed. Over under 62.5.
It's going to be yeah.
I do a little Babel SGP on Thursday night. The Cuse plus the points and the over 62.5. I like that. I like that pick a lot, Ryan. I'm gonna call it right now. Cuse wins.
I'm looking to see if there's any late night.
Get to 6-3. All right. So that'll do it. Appreciate you, Matt. I'm glad you're home again, right? You're home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm glad you're home again.
Me too.
Yeah. And Kev, we'll be back on Sunday. Maybe not a victorious Sunday, but I still think
it's a house money keeping it orange and blue.
That's
right.
And we might have some special guests. So I'm working on that. I'll tell you after the show. Okay.
All right.
All right, Matt. I'll let you know too, Matt.
Okay.
All right. We'll swap me out.
ILL.
I.